If you've been watching my channel for a while now, you'll know that I'm a huge fan of one-off prototype locomotives. It's been great to see multiple manufacturers getting their hands dirty with these one-offs. In the past couple of years, we've seen stuff like Kestrel, Falcon, the Turbomotive, the W1 Hush Hush, the GT3, and many more still to come. With KR models the leader on the way shortly, it really got me thinking about these prototypes. There are a number of them that I really would love to see come to life. And today I've picked a list of 7 of these locomotives that I'd love to see in ready-to-run format. So let's dive into this list, take a look at these locomotives and see who I think should be manufacturing them. And if you disagree with me or you suggest something else, let me know in the comments. Right, let's dive straight into it with a locomotive that I think a fair few modelers have been wanting for a very long time in ready-to-run format at least. Now, bear in mind with this list, all of these locomotives have been potentially made by modelers, but as a kit build thing. I'm looking at these specifically from a ready-to-run format, as in mass production, we get at least 500 of these models or more made by a manufacturer. So this is the Great Bear, probably the biggest Great Western locomotive that was ever built, and it unfortunately didn't see much use. Let's dive into it and get some info. The Great Western Railway's Great Bear, a pioneering British steam locomotive and the only one of its kind, the Great Bear was built in 1908 by the legendary engineer George Jackson Churchward. It was the first and only 462 Pacific type on the Great Western Railway, designed primarily for express and passenger services. Though it was an engineering marvel for the GWR, the Great Bear was controversial. While the design could support higher power and larger trains, the GWR's existing infrastructure and the relatively light demands of the lines meant its capabilities were somewhat underutilized. It was primarily used on the London to Bristol, but it rarely stretched its full potential due to the limitations of the routes. Great Bear was eventually deemed excessive and was withdrawn in 1924. The locomotive was dismantled and its frames were reused to create a new 460 Saint class engine named St. George. So who should build the Great Bear? Well, I'm going to assign this one to Accurascale. Given their recent success with the Manners and their proven ability to bring steam to life in model format, I think this would be a nice task for them to handle. While Accurascale are usually known for runs of various liveries of a specific class, this would obviously just be a single once-off, but perhaps some livery options would be available. I think this would be a really fantastic and unique locomotive for them to tackle. So Accurascale, if you're watching, please consider this at some point. If you guys think that another manufacturer should handle this model, please do let me know in the comments. The next locomotive is the Northeastern Railway's EE1 locomotive. This was an electric engine. The Northeastern Railway EE1 was an experimental electric locomotive built in 1922 to explore the potential for electric power on Britain's railways, particularly for freight and passenger services. Constructed at Darlington Works, the EE1 was a pioneering design with a 2-code-2 wheel arrangement, incorporating 6 driven wheels for stability and traction, and was driven by a British Thomson Houston electric motors. The EE1 was powered by overhead lines and used a 1500 volt DC system, aligning with the electrification efforts in the Shildon to Newport line project. It could generate around 1800 horsepower, making it powerful for its time, and it was tested with both passengers and heavy freight services. The EE1's design reflected the Northeastern Railway's forward-thinking approach to railway electrification and its commitment to engineering advancements. With its boxy body and advanced traction motors, the EE1 was well suited for the heavy industrial routes of the northeast of England. Despite its potential, the EE1 never saw widespread adoption. Its main limitation was the lack of infrastructure. Widespread electrification was postponed, making it uneconomical. So, who do you think should handle the EE1? I think it should be Helgen. Given their recent success with the Northeastern Rail ES1 locomotive, they do have that electrical side to them. Also, being a company that's accustomed to making these one-off type locomotives, I think the Danish company are well suited to something like this, a nice big boxy electric locomotive. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Next up, we have something for the LMS, a very unique locomotive and certainly a once-off. Let's take a look at the Fury. This ambitious high-pressure steam locomotive built in 1929 by the LMS was developed to explore the efficiency and power potential of high-pressure steam technology. Designed in collaboration with the superheater company, Fury was based on a modified version of the Royal Scot class, but it introduced a revolutionary 3-cylinder compound system. The most distinctive aspect of Fury was its ultra-high pressure boiler, operating at an astonishing 1800 psi, several times higher than the standard boilers of the era. This boiler design featured separate circuits and inner and outer cylinders to harness high pressure and low steam pressure, theoretically increasing efficiency. However, the boiler's complexity and the experimental design made it challenging to maintain and operate reliably. Fury was plagued by mechanical issues from the start. The high-pressure system proved difficult to manage, and a tragic accident in 1930 when a high-pressure tube burst severely injured an inspector, casting further doubts on the locomotive's viability. Following the accident, Fury was removed from service and the LMS conducted a series of reviews before ultimately abandoning this high-pressure design. In 1935, the LMS decided to rebuild Fury into a more conventional locomotive. The frame was reused to create LMS 6170 British Legion, another Royal Scot class engine, which went on to serve successfully with standard pressures. Right, so who do we hand development of Fury to? This may surprise you, but I'm going to go with Hornby on this one. Given their recent success of these sort of unique locomotives like the W1 Hush Hush, P2s, and even most recently the LMS Turbo Motive, I feel like Hornby are well equipped to deal with something like this locomotive. Plus, if you add HM7000 and a steam generator to this, you might have a locomotive that a lot of LMS modelers would be very keen to get their greasy paws on. Now here's a locomotive that's moving off the island and onto Ireland. This might be an odd choice given that it's a locomotive not from Great Britain, so to speak. However, because of its roots and its unique form of motive power, I feel like this is a locomotive that we can kind of slip by and add to this list. Let's take a look at the CC1. CIE number CC1 was a pioneering Irish steam locomotive, notable for being Ireland's first and only mainline steam turbine locomotive. Built in 1957, and forgive me if I pronounce this wrong, by Chorus Amper Éireann, the locomotive was developed as an experimental venture into steam turbine technology, intended to boost efficiency and performance on mainline routes. Its unique design featured a Co-2 wheel arrangement, where the driving wheels were powered by steam turbines instead of conventional pistons and cylinders. This setup was chosen with the goal of providing smoother power delivery and less mechanical wear, and CIE hoped it would deliver better fuel efficiency. The locomotive was powered by a high-pressure steam boiler, which drove two turbines, one for forward motion and another for reverse. Unlike traditional piston-driven engines, the turbines allowed for continuous high-speed operation, making the CC1 theoretically suitable for sustained high-speed runs. However, the engine's high fuel consumption, along with its complex maintenance needs, soon made it clear that the turbine locomotive was not suited to the CIE's operational environment. Operational tests revealed that the CC1 struggled to achieve the expected efficiencies and its fuel demands were high, limiting its practical use. Additionally, the intricacies of maintaining a steam turbine system proved costly and time-consuming, making it less feasible compared to conventional steam or emerging diesel-electric engines. Okay, so who's handling the CC1? This may surprise you, but I'm actually going to go with Accurascale again, simply because they have such strong roots with Irish railways. I feel like this is the kind of passion project that would be picked up by both Irish and British modelers alike. And as a result, it might be a relatively successful model for them to release. What do you guys think? Do you think somebody else could do this better? I feel like Accurascale are the obvious choice for it. Next up, the Great Eastern Railway gets a showing with their interesting decapod. Let's take a look at the Class A55. The Great Eastern Railway Class A55, also known as the Decapod, was an experimental OO9 steam locomotive built in 1902. It was designed by James Holden for the specific challenge of accelerating quickly from a sandstall with a heavy suburban train on short routes. At the time, the GER faced competition from electric traction on busy suburban routes in and around London, and the Decapod was an attempt to match the electric train's fast acceleration with steam power. With its unique OO9 wheel arrangement, meaning 10 coupled driving wheels and no leading trailing wheels, the Decapod was highly unconventional. It was powered by 3 cylinders, each driving a different set of wheels, and could develop significant tractive effort. This powerful configuration allowed the locomotive to quickly reach speeds of 30 miles an hour within just 28 seconds, demonstrating impressive acceleration for a steam engine of its size. However, the Decapod's advantages were outweighed by several drawbacks. Its heavy, complicated design was costly to build and maintain, and the 10 driving wheels, although providing excellent grip, made it unsuitable for prolonged high-speed operation or practical mainline service. The locomotive also placed a heavy strain on the track due to its weight and wheel configuration. After a brief series of trials, the GER decided that electric trains were a more practical solution for their suburban services. The decapod was withdrawn and eventually dismantled in 1906, just 4 years after it was built. Right, so who is tackling the A55 then? I think Rapido should have a crack at this one. Given their recent success and the quality they inspire, I feel like I'd be fairly confident placing this in their design category. It may be a bit out of the ballpark, but I feel like they treat it with the respect that it's due. You guys let me know what you think. Next up, a locomotive that is very near and dear to me given that it is a South African locomotive. The G16 Garratt, a narrow gauge engine that is currently operating up in Wales. In fact, there's quite a few of them running there too. The G16s are a series of iconic narrow gauge Garratt locomotives originally built for use on the rugged terrain of South Africa's 2-foot gauge lines. Developed between 1937 and 1958 by Bayer Peacock and Company and later Hunslet Taylor, these articulated little locomotives became known for their exceptional power and flexibility, which allowed them to navigate the sharp curves and steep gradients of South African mountain railways. Each narrow gauge G16 is configured as a 262 plus 262, meaning it has 2 sets of 6 driving wheels with a central flexible boiler that pivots between the 2 sets of driving frames. This Garratt design allowed the locomotive to distribute its weight more evenly, giving it the ability to handle heavy loads over challenging routes while maintaining stability. With a tractive effort of around 18,000 pounds force, the NG16 was capable of hauling long trains over difficult terrain, making it ideal for the mountainous lines it was designed to serve. The G16 has become a mainstay on tourist and heritage railways, such as the Welsh Highland Railways, and several G16s have been transferred to Wales where they remain operational, offering visitors a powerful example of narrow gauge engineering and the Garratt's design versatility. I think for many people, if you were debating OO9 and whether to get into it or not, seeing a G16 Garratt in ready-to-run format may just sway you into making that purchase. It would probably be a very complicated and expensive model to make in ready-to-run format. However, there is one company that I feel like could handle this, and that is obviously a company with a lot of history in OO9, being Bachmann. And as a South African, this is kind of like a holy grail locomotive to see in ready-to-run format. So nothing would make me happier, and I hope that someone at some point starts tackling this, but my wish would be that Bachmann handle it, as they do have a lot of experience with OO9. Finally, we come to our last engine, and this one may surprise you because it's a very little known engine. This is number 6841 William Francis, and was also a Garratt built in the UK and used in the UK. Finally, we come to a little known engine, number 6841 William Francis, a distinctive 040 plus 040T Bayer Garratt locomotive, notable for its compact size and unique design as one of the smallest Garratt locomotives ever built. Constructed in 1937 by Bayer Peacock and Company, William Francis was specifically designed for the industrial needs of the Baddesley Colliery in Warwickshire, England, where it worked on tight, narrow-gauge colliery tracks and had to navigate sharp curves and challenging gradients. This Garratt used an unusual 040 plus 040T configuration, meaning it had no leading or trailing wheels and had 2 sets of 4 driving wheels on either side of the central boiler. This articulated design allowed for excellent maneuverability and stability over uneven tracks, while the small boiler and water tank placed in the central frame kept the locomotive compact and light enough for industrial track work. Despite its small size, William Francis was an efficient little engine, able to haul considerable loads of coal and other materials through the colliery's often confined and rugged areas. William Francis remained in service at Baddesley Colliery for several decades, becoming a local icon due to its distinctive design and a reliable performance. After its retirement from active service, William Francis was preserved and eventually displayed at the Bressingham Steam Museum in Norfolk, England, where it remains as a unique example of the Garratt locomotive adapted for industrial purposes. I am going to hand this final loco on our list to KR Models. While in my mind Helgen may be the best equipped to build a Garratt in 00 gauge, I feel like KR Models should be given a shot with something like this. And given their library of very unique locomotives, I think this fits right in, given that it was essentially a one-off. This engine really would bring a lot of industrial layouts to life, and I imagine it would be quite a popular locomotive from the Canadian company. So there's my list of 7. What do you guys think about them? Did I make the right call on the manufacturers? There are many more of these weird prototype locomotives that could be added to this list. Drop your suggestions below and I'll probably make a part 2 because this is a topic I absolutely love. I promise a layout update is coming very soon. If you've been watching my overviews, you might have seen a couple of things happening and changing over time. I'm really excited to share the next stages with you, and from that point onwards, I'm actually going to be getting down and dirty and doing some individual sort of hands-on pieces. Thank you so much for watching, something a little bit different this time, but I hope you enjoyed it. Until I see you next time, keep your engines fired and stay on track.